So now we'll jump into the research questions. So first up, as you know, and as a lot of our audience also knows, GSEO is a primarily research organization, and that's one of the many reasons why we invited you here. And so we were able to find out that you have published two different research papers on gender politics and sustainable business practices. So first of all, can you please tell us what grabbed your interest in these topics, or why did you select these two topics specifically?
Yeah, of course. So, my first research paper was my paper on like gender politics, and I did that with a program called like Pioneer Academics. It's like an online program that connects like high school students from around the world with American professors. And I'm actually working with them now as a facilitator. So I facilitate like kind of like interviews like these where I ask like, "Oh, how's your research experience like?" So, I've been very involved with the community as well. So in that program, you get kind of like um you get to split into different kinds of topics and subjects. So I was in a concentration called gender and conflict. And so my professor, she was a professor at NYU, and she like was very well versed on like different wars in Europe as well as like the gender politic of that. And so I thought that it was like a tough subject that I'd never touched on before, and I didn't know anything about. So I thought it would be like interesting to play into her interests and kind of research this thing about gender that I didn't really know much about before. And like hearing her speak about it like so passionately really made me like understand like how much more there is to like humanities and STEM. Like it's not just like the face value of like what it sounds like. Um there's so much innovation that happens like at the fringes of topics that you can't always like just be talking about politics, or you can't just talk about like gender studies. Like whenever you talk about any of these things, you have to be like there's like connections between different subjects. And then for my second paper about sustainable business practices, I worked with a professor in at a university in Thailand, and again, this was like one of her the projects that she was working on at the moment. And although I am half Thai, I never actually lived in Bangkok, and so I really wanted to get to know like the business landscape of the city more. And I thought that this was a really good opportunity. And organic food and like sustainable products, I feel like all over the world, even in Indonesia, is gaining a lot more popularity. And so I thought it would be a subject that would be interesting to investigate into, and it was also something that I cared about like sustainability and ESG.
See, I see. That's quite interesting to hear. So, after working with, two different professors and writing two different research papers, would you have any tips or any suggestions that, or any advice that you would give to your younger self while you were just starting research? Since nowadays a lot of high school students are getting interested in research both for their own interests and for university applications. So, would you have any advice for like a head start on how do you get through it?
Yeah, I think that this is also advice I have to give to myself as well, but always like don't be afraid to reach out to professors, because I feel like I'm not like completely sure if it's the same in Asia, but it probably is. But usually like most of the times a lot of university professors, they're already doing some kind of research on the side. Like they already have like some kind of project or like thing that they're interested in. So like you can totally take this any other way, and everyone's research journey is different. But what helps a lot in the first time is having kind of like a more guided experience. So I would say like maybe like just trying to find a professor, like cold emailing is something that is inevitable, and you just kind of have to like send out a lot of like your own cover letters and like whatever. But I would say like just like kind of like piggybacking off something that your professor is already like interested in is something very useful. Like if you try to initiate your own research process like for your first research paper, it can be very daunting because like they're so long and it's like very technical. So I think like at the beginning, like don't feel pressured to have to like write like a super perfect like published in a Q1 journal kind of paper. Like that's not gonna happen like ethically in like your first paper. So I think like just like allowing yourself to take baby steps and starting with like something small and then like working your way up as you get more confident to like doing things that are more professional or like more different in the academic world.
That makes sense. Yeah. So while you were writing your research papers, what were the research questions? What were you mainly trying to solve? And what problems did you try to address during your research?
Yeah. I think my two research papers were very different, even though they're both kind of social sciences. So my first paper on like gender studies and politics was it was like an analysis of this political cartoon from the American Revolution, and it was like this like these like this comic of like Britain and like a woman depicting America like assaulting each other. Like it was a very strange image, and like me and my professor both thought it was very interesting. It was a little bit comedic. So then like we wanted to like kind of like research through that image and just kind of like picking at the different symbolism in that in the image and like what it says about the times and like news during that period. So that was what my first research was about. And that was like in around my like entering my junior year of high school, I think. Wait, yeah, I think so. And then my second one was researching into sustainable business practices in Thailand. So that was about I was researching into I did a lot of interviews with different Thai companies, and I wanted to know how like the size of the company influenced the kind of strategies of marketing they use to market sustainable products. So like for example, if you had like a new like startup business, how do their strategies to market differ from like a huge conglomerate who wants to market like a sustainable food brand? So like there's so many different like strategies that go into that. So I wanted to like I what I researched was like how these strategies differ depending on the size of the organization.
See. Okay, and follow up to that question. How do you think your research would influence future studies? Or how do you think what you've done will influence real world?
I think like hopefully for my second paper about business practices, like because like I said, organic and like sustainable brands are like becoming more popular in Bangkok. That's something that I hope would be useful as like organic products begin to get more traction. But I think that like especially like for high school, it's more about like how these research papers shape you as well. So like I feel like the research papers that I did really changed like my mindset on research and like how different it can be. Like it doesn't just have to be conducted in the lab or it doesn't just have to be on online databases. But I think like um it really showed that there's so many ways that you can take research and it isn't just like a one size fits all kind of thing.
I see. Okay, and sort of piggybacking back up there, uh, your two research papers that you did were in high school. Was that correct?
Yes.
I see. Okay. So, do you think there's a huge importance on you doing your research papers in high school? Do they have to be at least 50% related to what you're plan to study in university? Or should there be a major relation to what you're studying, or can it be like anything that the student's interested in, not just, one specific uh, goal or one specific major?
Yeah, I think I'm still like learning about that as well. Like I'm just like entering my sophomore year, so I'm definitely not like an admissions officer experience or anything like that. But I think that it's ideal if it's tied to your major because like that does show like the school that you're actually interested in this major enough to pursue research in high school about it. But like what I like to say is that like anything can be tied to any major. Like you can like say about like oh like even if it's a different like topic, you can say like I learned the strategies of how to research, or I learned how to interview people, I learned how to write a lit review. Like there are so many skills that you learn at your first time researching that it can be applicable to a lot of different situations. But to answer your question, I do think that it's better that it's at least in the same field, like humanities, social sciences, business, science, as like what you want to major in. But it doesn't have to be like the exact precise like concentration that you would want to do in university.
Uchal, any questions from your side on research?
Did you publish your research paper in like any news journals, or did you just like write it yourself and like done?
I think that publication is honestly like a slippery slope for high school, I think, because like a lot of universities know that like if it's like some no-name journal, like you can like buy your way into publication and like genuine like actual publication takes like months and years. So like you're probably not gonna get like you're not gonna write a paper in junior year and get it published before you can send your applications. But for my second
No.
paper, I was really lucky that my professor really pushed me to want to publish as well. So I did end up getting it published in a journal called Business Strategy and the Environment. And that's like a Q1 journal, which is like kind of like the top tier for academic journals. And it was published in that journal under like the sustainability section. So, but like I said, like publication, it's if it's done organically, I do think it's valuable. But if you find it's fishy, you have to pay, like that kind of thing. Like you shouldn't have to pay to publish your research. And if you can see that it's fishy, the school can definitely see that it's fishy. So like they would see through it right away. So don't try to take an easy way out and really just like kind of be organic if you're applying to publish.